Hello, BookTube. I've got a nice little stack of mail for you today and a periodical. And not just any periodical. It's Architectural Digest. So we are once again indulging in a weird fan favorite on this channel where Steve goes through Decor magazines. I don't know. The heart wants what it wants. This is the best of the best for designs for Architectural Digest at their 100th anniversary. Architectural Digest is 100 years old. But they still follow the same pattern that these magazines always do, which is ads at the front. All sorts of designer collection ads so that you know the look of the thing and also the look oftentimes of the designer. There's quite a few designers who are profiled in this issue, just in case you want... Oh, of course, there's also our friend the chair. In case you want a nice, comfortable seat. Just don't move it or pull it across the floor because it's like ripping a needle across a phonograph record. But or if you don't like that chair, you could always use this one. Can you make that out? Those are chairs. They don't have any armrests, and because of how high the lip is, the only way that you can get out of that chair is to roll sideways and literally fall off it. And then make your way up off the floor. That you can sit on that chair, but you can't get up off that chair, except to roll off it onto the floor. Because nothing quite says haute couture like hating your guests. But we go through all of these high-priced ads, all of these designers who put their faces into these ads, although the issue does very little in the way of linking a particular designer with a particular design. Probably, given a lot of the crap that we've seen this year, that is probably completely justified. There's a landscape ad. This thing. Look at that. Can you imagine living in a home like that? You're supposed to be distracted by the beauty of the pool, and I guess that's supposed to take your mind off the fact that this is an open shack in a field. So you walk up to this house at night, and there are a whole bunch of people outside, and you say, "Oh, you guys here for the party?" And the first group you talk to says, "Oh, no, we're burglars." Obviously, this is 50,000 square feet of really expensive stuff with no doors or windows, and you say, "Oh, you're burglars." Oh, okay. And you walk up to the next group, right, also congregated by the pool with drinks, and you say, "Hey, you guys here for the party?" No, we're burglars too. Obviously, this house is an open invitation to burglary. You can watch what everyone's doing at all times in every room just by standing there. And eventually, once you've talked to enough of those groups of people, you just decide, oh, the heck with it, I'll burglarize the place too. A house without walls. Lovely. Just lovely. But eventually, we do get to the bread and butter of magazines like this, which is to go, we get lots of designers with and a little paragraph profile of course, one of them is named Hadley. That goes without saying. But eventually we do get to the bread and butter of magazines like this, which is profiles of homes. And I'm assuming that the best of the best designers refers to the designers who are profiled in the front part of the magazine, because the designs of the homes in the back are nothing to write home about. Nothing at all. We have one in Malibu. A couple redoes a Malibu beach house. What they redo it to is this. There is the dining room, I guess. It's a wonderful view, but it's not meant for humans. So what's the point of it? It's a wonderful view, but if you're not supposed to live there, this, I guess, is for goldfish. You're gonna sleep in that with the metal framing, the cheap metal framing that isn't attached to anything that could fall on you and bisect you at any minute. A fundamental misunderstanding of what a four-poster bed is or should do or how it is to be enjoyed. It's a perfect example of a modern generation simply aping the externals of an earlier generation without having any idea what they're doing. But then we move on from a Malibu beach house to an old historic home in Connecticut. And we're told that it's a family that restored this home in Connecticut. Which means two things almost certainly. One is it will be ineptly designed, including filling in working fireplaces. filling in a working fireplace. Instead of using the fireplace, you fill it in to make it a decorative accent. And the other guarantee of a restored historic house in Connecticut is the return of the nightmare giraffe. These are parents who don't actually want their kids. They want a picture. They want a storybook that they were raised with. A perfectly behaved wife. My wife does not ever get grumpy. Perfectly behaved husband. He always makes money, more money than his wife. And we absolutely have no feeling whatsoever for children. We don't like them. We don't want them at all. But when you're talking about fashion accessories, if you've got a restored house that you've spent $3 million restoring in Connecticut when there was nothing wrong with the original one, and you're married and you're a power couple in the neighborhood and you like subtly bossing your neighbors about when they do and do not take out their trash cans, you have to have kids. You have to have a boy and a girl. If you have a boy and then the next child is a boy, expose him on the nearest hillside and just wait, because you don't want a whole team of these things. You want a boy and a girl, and you will give them names that you think are clever without a single thought to the torment they will endure for having those names. So, little apostrophe might sound really cute when she's in the nursery, but she's going to be little apostrophe Jones when she's in the playground. And that's not going to go well for her, and you don't care at all because you don't care about her at all. There is the house. When you're walking by it like this, you can practically hear the local guide whispering, "That's where the murders took place." But if you're talking about an airbrushed, yuppie, Connecticut house redoing power couple, of course, this is the living room. Guess who sits in that chair with his back to the rest of the room? Just guess. Well, that would be Papa. But if we're dealing with such a family, then you know as well as I do what's coming. The return of the haunted giraffe. Yes, indeed. As we have covered on this channel in many a design faux pas, only these kinds of suburban Connecticut sociopaths think that kids like 5-foot-tall stuffed giraffes. They're the only ones who think that, and they think that because everything they know about parenthood or children, they learned in Hollywood movies. And in Hollywood movies, the stereotypical shorthand of a kid's room is that it will have a giant stuffed giraffe. Kids don't like them. No kid would ever ask for one. No kid wants one. It's a decorative thing. These poor children, there's a little apostrophe, and I guess that's semicolon, they're not allowed to touch that thing. It's a decorative accent. I'm sure they're not allowed to touch much in their own household. During the rare instances in which their parents see them, in which they are not being completely taken care of by nannies and au pairs and whatnot. And just in case you were wondering, well, there is the filled-in fireplace. It's in the master bedroom. Would have been perfect to be in the master bedroom, but no, let's fill it in. I mean, fire betokens life and living, and we don't do that, really. Then we have something even worse. The Connecticut couple was just the ordinary sociopath. You can spot these sociopaths in a heartbeat by the weird names they give their kids and the fact that they station, as it were, a 5-foot-tall stuffed giraffe in their kid's bedroom. Because they think that's what it means to have a childhood. That's what it means to be a kid. A giant, creepy, stuffed giraffe. So what is it that you say little apostrophe is actually asking for a kid's iPad? No. You can't have anything that you actually want. But isn't this fun? What about this giant antique toy train that doesn't run on its track, doesn't move, you're not supposed to touch it, but it kind of looks like childhood's past, doesn't it? Smack across the face if you disagree. Those are just garden variety Connecticut sociopaths. What we have next is a full-blown psychopath, because this is a guy who built his designer house. Where is this? In Denmark. He built a designer house. There's a nice big window there, but you might think, well, what do you have to complain about there? There's a view of the freak show house built Hobbit style under a hill. And you can almost make out from this picture what the psychopathic element is. But when you turn to the next, you see this guy built his house around his car collection. He built his house so that the cars could live comfortably there. And then as an afterthought, for his $1 million a year architectural firm, he said, well, maybe add some details for humans? It is a car garage. It looks like a car garage, but maybe add a couple of, I don't know, what are they called? Bedrooms? That's pretty bad. You don't want to live in a house with someone who built the house for his cars. And yet this guy is married. Then we move to, I believe this is California. Yes, Los Angeles. This is a Quincy Jones house that the couple tries to make comfortable and livable. Comfortable and livable. Yes, indeed. What's that? What's this? What's this? Comfortable and livable. Yes, indeed. So you've got gigantic floor-to-ceiling windows to let in the 130-degree Fahrenheit sunlight and heat. And in case you need a scenic view, there's the desiccated rock garden with the dried-up corpses of rattlesnakes. The kitchen, the designers tell us, was a challenge. It was a challenge to deal with this kitchen. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. It must be a challenge to take an ordinary working California kitchen and mess it up that bad. Here's the living room. What's this? A basket of some kind, I think. What's this? Yeah, so here I can, from this monstrosity that we saw in the earlier picture, here's where I can stand at this banister and watch you all. In my oh-so-inviting living room. Or what about this? You've got a lily pond. Lily ponds are a great idea. They are a really relaxing environment for the home. But is this one? Well, no. No, it's not, because it's half lost in shadow. And the whole thing is underneath a looming rock wall that could fall at any minute. And, of course, needless to say, both the water and the lily pads are fake. And you're not allowed to touch them anyway. And then there's also this. An outdoor garden setting, only there's no garden. There's a gigantic bowl with water in it, and these cut fronds. Now, these cut fronds, the water is not helping them at all. After a day, they're going to start to wilt. So there's someone who is instructed to cut these things and put them in fresh every day. I think we can pretty much guarantee that it's not the mistress and master of the house who do that. It's instead someone who is screamed at to do that. There's a Cape May house that is perched up on a hill here in Massachusetts. A really nice property. This one made me wince at how chintzy and frou-frou the interior is. Look what they did to this metal tub. They have a deep metal tub with clawed feet, and this is what they did to it. Yeah, paint it in bright white and burgundy and remove the finishing that was on it originally. That'll be much better. And of course, as is true with all of these modern bathrooms, put a chair in so someone can watch you washing your junk. There are chairs in all of these things. Really, really don't understand it. And there's the last one we have here is a Paris apartment, which is the title of the article is Warm Embrace. There is nothing warm about this thing at all. It's instead creepy, downright creepy. Let me show you one of the hallways in this gallery of nightmares. That's a hallway in this apartment. And those little knobs are doors. There are doors on all the way down this hallway on both sides. It's like something straight out of a horror movie. I like the fact that the doors are elliptical like that, but look what the person did with it. Look what the design team did with it. They saw a house full of those doorways, which are domed, and they decided to argue with them by making the whole house just a gigantic collection of austere straight lines. If you've got features like that, you don't argue with it. That's the whole point, is that you don't argue with it. You go with it instead. And here we have a very inviting, I don't know, foyer or something or other. And this little doorway here is glowing from behind because that's where we burn the servants who drop things. So the back part of the magazine was just as horrifying as every other non-anniversary issue of Architectural Digest. But we have some books as well. I see that the light is misbehaving. I'd rather have it and have it misbehave than not have it. So we'll still be able to see the books. Let's take a look at what we have today. The first one is very short, very slim thing. Oh, it's from Tor. Fantastic. Great. This is, what have we got here? This comes out in late March. This is The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Ose Utomi. The Lies of Ajungo. Once again, 2023 release with a really nice cover. I don't know what's going on for 2023. What have we got here? It's a slim thing. Look at how tiny that is. This is from Tor.com. Thrilled to be bringing readers the stunning debut novella. This is the author's debut novella. No idea what else he's written. Maybe he's written short stories. Following one boy's epic quest to bring water back to his city and save his mother's life. Prepare to enter the forever desert. In the City of Lies, they cut out your tongue when you turn 13 to appease the terrifying Ajungo Empire and make sure it continues sending water. Tutu will be 13 in 3 days, but his parched mother won't last that long. So Tutu goes to his Oba and makes a deal. She provides water for his mother, and in exchange he will travel out into the desert and bring back water for the city. Thus begins Tutu's quest for the salvation of his mother, his city, and himself. Okay, I'm a little bit confused. If he can just up and go out into the desert to get water, then why does he need his Oba? Why can't he go out and get some for his mother himself? I guess the book will tell me a little thing. It'll take no time at all to read. This book opens the curtains on a tremendous world and begins the epic fable of the forever desert, with the next book in the trilogy coming in the fall of 2023. Oh, so there are going to be 2 books here. There are going to be 2 books in this series, at least 2, in the same year. I wonder if the second one will be just this short. So this is going to be an epic trilogy. This is going to be a trilogy of novellas? That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that. All right, well, science fiction, fantasy, great, fantastic. Then we'll move on to this next one here. I imagine that everything in this haul will be 2023 release. I don't think I'll be getting any more 2022 books this late in the year. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, this comes out in May. This is by Patrick Wheel, and it is The Madman in the White House, Sigmund Freud, Ambassador Bullitt, and the Lost Psychobiography of Woodrow Wilson. I don't know. Well, let's find out. Let's find out what this is. I hope that's not a reference to Wilson's stroke. That having a stroke does not make you a madman. Let's see here. The notorious psychobiography of Woodrow Wilson, rediscovered nearly a century after it was written by Sigmund Freud and U.S. diplomat William Bullitt, sheds new light on how the mental health of a controversial president shaped world events. When the fate of millions rests on the decisions of a mentally compromised leader, what can one person do? Disillusioned by President Woodrow Wilson's destructive and irrational handling of the 1919 Treaty of Versailles, a U.S. diplomat named William Bullitt asked this very question. With the help of his friend Sigmund Freud, Bullitt set out to write a psychological analysis of the president. He gathered material from personal archives and interviewed members of Wilson's inner circle, and in this book, the author resurrects this forgotten portrait of an unbalanced president. So I guess Wheel is going to argue that Wilson was mentally unbalanced, stroke or no stroke. After 2 years of collaboration, Bullitt and Freud signed off on a manuscript in April of 1932, but the book was not published until 1966, nearly 30 years after Freud's death and only a year after Bullitt's. The published edition was heavily redacted, and by the time it was released, the mystique of psychoanalysis had waned in popular culture, and Wilson's legacy was unassailable. The psychological study was panned by critics, and Freud's descendants denied his involvement in the project. Wow, it sounds like the uncovering of the project itself will be as interesting as anything it says about Wilson. For nearly a century, the mysterious original Bullitt and Freud manuscript remained hidden from the public. Then in 2014, whilst browsing the archives at Yale University, as one does, the author happened upon the text. Based on his reading of the 1932 manuscript, he examines the significance of Bullitt and Freud's findings and offers a major reassessment of the notorious psychobiography. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. So a historical detective story, and also maybe the year's best book on Wilson. We shall see. Let's move on here. I don't think I mentioned, but we have 2 boxes to end this out. Very, very weird lighting here. Oh my. Okay, another history, another biography, another biographical study. This one will be a lot tougher to read. Okay, it comes with tons and tons of blurbs. Oh, okay. Correction. This author, Benjamin Balint, wrote a book called Kafka's Last Trial, and the sheet that comes with this new book is entirely just 2 pages of blurbs about that book. So we don't have anything with this. We'll just read the description of the book. This is by Benjamin Balint, and this is Bruno Schultz, an artist, a murder, and the hijacking of history. Oh my, this is going to be tough to read. I'm looking forward to it. This comes out in April. Let's see here. The 20th century artist Bruno Schultz was born an Austrian, lived as a Pole, and died a Jew. One of the most remarkable writers who ever lived is what Isaac Bashevis Singer called him. Schultz also created erotic art, masochistic scenes that caught the eye of the sadistic Nazi officer. Schultz's art became the currency in which he bought his life. Drawing on extensive new reporting and archival research, this book chases the inventive murals he painted on the walls of an SS villa, the last traces of his vanished world, into multiple dimensions of Schultz's life and afterlife. 60 years after he was murdered, those murals were miraculously rediscovered, only to be secretly smuggled by Israeli agents to Jerusalem. The ensuing international furor summoned broader perplexities, not just about who has the right to curate orphaned artworks and to construe their meanings, but about who can claim to stand guard over the legacy of Jews killed in the Nazi slaughter. Bruno Schultz's end, the story of his ending, I'm sure it'll be the centerpiece of this book. It is a brutal story. And this author obviously wrote Kafka's Last Trial because it's all the entire blurb was about Kafka's Last Trial. And you can't really, I am very dramatic here, but you can still see the books. That's all that matters. So let's do these last 2 boxes and see what we have here. Boxes ordinarily mean finished copies, but I don't know. Okay, this next one is a finished copy. Okay, this is a January release. Very pretty thing. It's a naked hardcover. Very pretty. Great. This is Be Not Afraid of Life, in the words of William James, edited by John Cagg and Jonathan Van Bell. Be Not Afraid of Life. Let's make sure that you can see this. It's the best angle to see. It doesn't matter if you can see me. You can see this. So it's going to look like this. It doesn't have a dust jacket. It's just like this. And this comes out in early January, January 10th. William James, psychologist, philosopher, and spiritual seeker, is one of those rare writers who can speak directly and powerfully to anyone about life's meaning and worth, whose ideas change not only how people think, but how they live. The thinker who helped found the philosophy of pragmatism and inspire Alcoholics Anonymous, James famously asked, "Is life worth living?" Bringing together many of his best and most popular essays, talks, and other writings, this anthology presents James's answers to that and other existential questions in his own unique manner, caring, humorous, eloquent, incisive, humble, and forever on the trail of the ever not quite. I seem to remember that this author wrote a great book on William James. This is a collection of James's work. That's fantastic. You never expect that to happen. But who is this John Cagg? Chair and professor of philosophy at the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, external professor at the Santa Fe Institute, and the author of Sick Souls, Healthy Minds, How William James Can Save Your Life. Okay. So he did write. He wrote an earlier book on William James, The Interesting James Brother. Fantastic. This is just a collection of writing. Great. Does it have any kind of critical apparatus? Not that James really needs one. No, it doesn't. It's just the pieces. Fantastic. Okay, early January. A new anthology of the writing of William James. Let's make sure that the pub date is easily visible right there. And then we'll move on to the last box in this melodramatically lit mail hall. This could also be a finished copy. Yeah, this is a finished copy of something. What do we got here? Oh my. Okay, more highfalutin philosophy. This is by Valerie Tiberius, and it is called What Do You Want Out of Life? A Philosophical Guide to Figuring Out What Matters. What do you want out of life? A short guide to living well by understanding better what you really value and what to do when your goals conflict. What do you want out of life? To make a lot of money or work for justice? To run marathons or sing in a choir? To have children or travel the world? The things we care about in life, family, friendship, leisure activities, work, our moral ideals, often conflict, preventing us from doing what matters most to us. Even worse, we don't always know what we really want or how to define success. Blending personal stories, philosophy, and psychology, this insightful and entertaining book, this is entertaining. I'm the czar of all the Russias. Although I should read it and see. I should definitely read it and see. Offers invaluable advice about living well by understanding your values and resolving the conflicts that frustrate their fulfillment. Okay, the problem that I have with this and all other pieces of philosophical flapdoodle is that they have their stupid excuses built in. The stupid excuse that's built into the folderol here, at least in the pub sheet. This is just the pub sheet. The book could be very different. The book comes out on January 10th. The problem that I have with the flapdoodle that I just read you is that it implies that all of your desires are, to one extent or another, viable, and you just have to figure out how to reconcile them. If they seem to be in conflict, then how do you reconcile them? When actually, because you're a human being and full of weaknesses, plenty of the things that you desire, plenty of things that you want out of life will be things you shouldn't want. And the reason they will conflict with the better things that you want out of life is because one is good and one is bad. And the answer to that seeming conflict is to effing control yourself. And no philosophy book is going to tell you to do that. None are. None are. Now, some of you out there, some of you misguided Jordan Peterson fans, for instance, might say at this point, no, my guy tells me to control myself. That's not true. I don't know how many Jordan Peterson fans are still watching this channel, but that's not true. He's not the only one. Every Peterson-style guru like him for disaffected, famously aimless young men between the ages of 18 and 25, none of those people tell you to control yourself. What they're telling, when you strip away the excess verbiage and pay them the money up front that they all want, all of them want that money. If they wanted what was best for you and they wanted to simply tell it to you, they would simply tell it to you. So the fact that they all want the money tells you what their priority is. But what they really say when you strip away that verbiage is not control yourself. It's let me control you. I'm not saying that, and this book won't say that. I'm saying control yourself. Control yourself. So in the context of the pub sheet that we read, if you want to run a marathon, but you're also a tobacco addict, well, those two things are in conflict. Definitely, they are in conflict. There are a couple of fitness influencers who have active Instagram accounts who will lie to you about that. But those two things are in conflict. Your pulmonary capability is the price you pay. It's the coin you pay for a tobacco addiction. You have a little bit less of it every day when you do that to yourself. If those two events are in conflict and you really, really want the marathon event, then you have to control yourself. You have to get rid of the goal, the urge, the whatever that conflicts with that. This book, I don't think, is going to tell me that. This book, it seems like it's going to be much more along the lines of how do we reconcile everything that we want? Because we can't possibly, if we want something, it can't be wrong. Right? It can't be. No way. So if I want X and I also want negative X, there must be a way to reconcile them. Perhaps the first step is to buy my book. I promise you. On the soul of Lord Ganesha, if I ever write a Steve's Guide to Life philosophy book, I will put it on Amazon for free. I will put it on Amazon for free. Anyway, so what do you want out of life? A philosophy book. Then real philosophy, Be Not Afraid of Life. The writings of William James. This is not even John Cagg going on at length. This is mostly just a collection of excerpts from James's writing. That's fantastic. What actually is excerpted here? Are varieties of religious experience excerpted in here? Pragmatism will be all over this thing. Determinism and Despair, Freedom and Life. Yeah, there's one excerpt from the Varieties of Religious Experience. A bunch of essays, some letters. That's interesting. Then another excerpt from Varieties of Religious Experience. Great. Fantastic. Okay. All right, so William James in excerpt. Great. Then we have Bruno Schultz by Benjamin Balin. A kind of biography as seen through the fate of artwork that he did literally day by day in order to, Scheherazade style, to preserve his life. I'm giving you what you want. You can't do it yourself. Will you let me live another day? Will you give me a little bit of more preferential treatment, a little bit more food? And how that kind of a psychodrama only ends one way. Then The Madman in the White House, where the psychobiography of Woodrow Wilson is resurrected and re-examined by a modern-day scholar. Oh, my. And finally, The Lies of Ajungo by Moses Ose Utomi, a novella about the city of lies, where the manhood ritual is that young men have their tongues cut out. And our young protagonist wants to avoid that fate, but he also wants to get water for his mother. So maybe, in a way, a kind of funhouse refracted example of climate fiction. That priority of getting water, that is already a huge priority for a large amount of sub-Saharan Africa, and it is going to be everyone's priority by the middle of this century. Aquifers are drying up. Rivers are disappearing. No one predicted that. No, not climatologists from just 10 years ago didn't predict that. Sources of potable water are disappearing. Mankind will adapt, of course. Desalination technology will improve and become universal. Rainwater reclamation, which almost doesn't happen. Kind of amazing, but it almost doesn't happen. Enough rain fell on Massachusetts just in the last 2 days to supply the drinking water needs of everyone in the state for the whole year. That was just one storm. There'll be plenty more storms. We live right now very much in a worldview that says drinkable water is abundant. It's endless. We once lived in a worldview that said fish in the sea were abundant. Endless. We've made an idiom out of it, right? There are plenty of other fish in the sea. There aren't. The sea is almost empty. And that we will need to adjust to that new reality. We have already whole industries collapsing because the things they go out to fish aren't there anymore. Same thing will be true with drinkable water, and that's going to happen very soon. When a collapse happens, it happens a little bit at a time, then it happens all at once. What the reality that so many people deal with in many, many parts of the world, leaving out the Middle East, where there is no water at all, but sub-Saharan Africa, where there is no water at all, the reality that they deal with, huge import prices, or in the case of poor communities, you strap jugs to your head and you walk for 4 hours to the water distribution point or to the nearest source of mildly drinkable water. You fill as much as you can physically carry and you walk it back home. That's pretty much your whole day. And you do it again tomorrow, too. A sore ankle, a broken ankle, forget about it. And we like to think of that as a problem somewhere else, a problem, elsewhere, but it's not. There's virtually no drinkable water in Southern California. Anywhere in the southern half of the state, that's tens of millions of people. Arizona, Tempe, Arizona cannot possibly support its own water demands. Phoenix, Arizona cannot possibly support its own water demands. Can't even come close. There's a trickle of naturally occurring water, and there are tens of millions of people. So this could be climate fiction. I don't know quite where I stand. Well, I actually do know where I stand, considering that I love big fat books. I kind of know where I stand on the idea of making a trilogy of tiny little featherweight novellas. Maybe the other two books will be longer. Maybe this is sort of a appetizer. But a nice, varied collection of books, definitely. Double shot of philosophy, double shot of biography, something from Tor.com, which I ordinarily don't get. That's wonderful. So, and of course, Architectural Digest. So there's your mail for today. Amazingly, we finished in under 50 minutes. I will wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.